serve their fellow countymen, and that you would watch over this court tonight, that you would give them your wisdom, Father, as they sort out details and determine different matters at hand. Father, we thank you for living in a country where we can still gather together and your name can still be invoked, at least in certain places. And we know we're blessed to be here in Kentucky and in Grayson County, where we're not afraid to lift up your name in a place of public business. And Father, we thank you for all that you've done for our county. We know that our country is in desperate straits right now. And Father, we know the answer lies in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And Father, so we pray that throughout our land, that your name would be lifted up and that the good news of Jesus Christ would be told among the people. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Norman, if you could, would you lead us in the pledge, please? If I would, please take your hands off and rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda, we have to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Entertain a motion. Motion by Darren, second by Tommy. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved payment of bills. Entertain a motion. Motion by Neil, second by Damon. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved treasurer's monthly settlement. Entertain a motion. Motion by Tommy, second by Darren. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved treasurer's budget transfers as presented. Entertain a motion. Motion by Neil, second by Brian. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved treasurer's quarterly settlement. Entertain a motion. Motion by Darren, second by Tommy. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, I have approved sheriff's monthly settlement. Entertain a motion. Motion by Neil, second by Damon. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have accept Grayson County Fiscal Court audit for 6/30/17. We emailed you all that back last week. I think everybody's had an opportunity to look over. Entertain a motion. Motion by Tommy, second by Darren. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have accept Grayson County Board of Health minutes from 12/13/18. Entertain a motion. Motion by Tommy, second by Darren. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, I need to approve to move the February 5th fiscal court meeting to February the 8th at 5. I'm going to be out of town on the 5th, so it's going to be the same week, but I just need to move it to the 8th on that Friday for the payment of bills. So I need to entertain a motion. Motion by Brian, second by Neil. All in favor? Okay. We've got a couple of things we've got to add on to the agenda here. One is approved jail's monthly settlement. I think you've actually got that, and it's just not added to the agenda. So I need to entertain a motion to approve the jail's monthly settlement. Motion by Tommy, second by Darren. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved jail's payment of bills. Entertain a motion. Motion by Darren, second by Tommy. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have approved jail's budget transfers as presented. Entertain a motion. Motion by Brian, second by Neil. All in favor? Any opposed? Next, we have new business. And I think the Board of Health is actually going to present the legal exchange program. Go over a few rules with you on how we're going to do this. Who's going to be my presenters? Dr. Lee, and you are, sir?
Greg Corby Lee.
Okay. The way we're going to do this, I want to give you all as much time as you need to go ahead and present this to the magistrates. And anyone that has any comments or anything else, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna wait till after the presenters, and then I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to speak for or against this program. So you've got 2 minutes. We don't want to get into a public debate in a court meeting. So if Dr. Lee is actually presenting this, if someone's got a question or opposes this, you need to direct the question to the court and not Dr. Lee. So
That question is in the 2 minutes after the presentation.
yes, I'll tell everybody whenever who all wants to speak, we'll let them speak in reference to this, okay? So if the presenters would like to go ahead, go right ahead.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this at fiscal court. Back in June of 2018, the Board of Health passed it unanimous, and City Council passed it in November unanimous as well. So a couple things I just want to go over first. The last Board of Health meeting, we actually voted on the retractable needles. So they're one-time use needles, and that's something that a lot of people wasn't aware of during, well, I've heard a lot of people is not aware of it. So we are doing the retractable needles at the health department if this program passes. And that's what it is.
Thank you, Magistrates, again for the time this evening, and Judge Henderson. My name is Greg Corby-Lee. I recently retired from Kentucky Public Health. I was the HIV/AIDS Continuing Education Director, and I've worked in HIV in Kentucky for 32 years. I've got a bunch of slides, and hopefully you'll be able to see these on the dark wall. And basically, this presentation is, of course, about harm reduction syringe exchange programs. And I'm going to be showing you several things this evening, and we'll try to make this as quickly as possible. I do want to review briefly the information that we have about HIV in Kentucky, including here in Grayson County, as well as Hep C information. Give you some background information on the opioid epidemic in Kentucky, and take a brief look at the Indiana outbreak that we had a few years ago. And looking at the most vulnerable counties as determined by the Centers for Disease Control in Kentucky. And then, of course, looking at Senate Bill 192, which is Kentucky's heroin bill. So briefly, this is where we stood recently with a number of known cases of HIV. And one of the things on this slide, it shows that Grayson County has 8 cases living. A recent report on a local station here said that they believe that it's doubled in the last fiscal year. I've not been able to confirm that with Kentucky Public Health. But one of the things I do want you to realize is most Kentuckians have never tested for HIV. 60% have never. So these only represent the cases that we are aware of. As far as hepatitis C goes, the main risk factor for hepatitis C transmission is injecting drug use. 60% of the acute cases of Hep C are from injection drug use. And Kentucky has been leading the nation in hepatitis C for years. As you can see here, this data goes from 2009 up to only 2014, and Kentucky has been leading the pack for quite a while. So why do people who inject drugs put themselves, why are they at so much risk of viral transmissions like HIV and hepatitis? Every dot on this slide, and there's some dark blue dots that you might not be able to see, but there's several hundred of them, represents a person in Hazard, Kentucky who is an injection drug user. This is from a study that the University of Kentucky has been doing for several years. First thing I want to show you on this slide is people who share needles with each other. That's what each line represents. So you've got this dense user network of people sharing needles. Why do they share needles? Well, because 1, they cannot legally obtain them. And 2, they often get confiscated when they have run-ins with law enforcement. Or they're afraid to have them, and so they toss them on the ground, which is one of the worst things that they could do. This study went on for a couple of years, and you notice the blue dots represent people who were negative for hepatitis C at the beginning of the study, and the red dots represent those who were positive. Over a 2-year period, every dot that's turning yellow was a new hepatitis C case. And so again, you can see that if you throw HIV into that mix, you could have an outbreak. And that's exactly what happened in Indiana recently. Not only do we have issues with overdose and with hepatitis and HIV, but we also have neonatal abstinence syndrome. This is when a baby is born addicted to opioids because mom's been using during pregnancy. And over a 15-year period, Kentucky has had a nearly 5,000% increase in neonatal abstinence syndrome. It continues to be an issue, of course. Overdosing to death is an issue in Kentucky. How many of you people in here know of someone who's overdosed? It's pretty common. And I don't have to tell you, the red line is Kentucky, whereas the blue line is United States. And this data goes up through 2017. And Grayson County certainly has had more than its share of overdoses. They had 28 deaths in 2017 from drug overdose. And you can see the counties surrounding you, there are a few who are pretty much ranked the same, but several are ranked lower. In 2017, Kentucky had the second highest death rate due to drug overdoses. West Virginia was the only state that was worse off than we are. So what else could be happening in Grayson County? And could it maybe already be happening? The outbreak in Indiana that occurred a few years ago went like this. Scott County, Indiana, about 30 miles up the road from Louisville, typically had about 5 annual cases of HIV per year. And then within a year's time, they soared up to 180 cases. This is the worst HIV outbreak in U.S. history. Austin, Indiana, a town with a population of 4,200, which is, by the way, 60% of the size of Litchfield, now has HIV infection rates that rival sub-Saharan Africa. And the surge of infections was attributed solely to injection drug use and people sharing needles. So this prompted the Centers for Disease Control to do a nationwide study to see where this might happen again. And this is a result of that study. They determined 220 counties in the United States were at high risk of being vulnerable to an HIV outbreak or Hep C outbreak amongst people who inject drugs. And you can see Kentucky didn't fare very well in the study at all. One of the things about this study is if a county had a syringe exchange program, they didn't get put on this map. As a matter of fact, in 2014, this is where syringe exchange programs existed in the United States. This is not a new program. It's only new in Kentucky. These programs have been around my whole career, 30 years. And they've been studied year after year. So we're not coming in this totally out of the know. We have a lot of science behind it. You'll notice those states that have a lot of syringe exchange programs do not have vulnerable counties. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's public health. Taking a closer look at Kentucky, these are the 54 counties out of those 220 nationwide counties that the Centers for Disease Control says is vulnerable to an AIDS outbreak like Austin, Indiana. Again, because of the dense drug user network similar to Scott County and the lack of syringe exchange programs. Now, when this study was released, Grayson County was ranked the 39th most likely county in Kentucky to have an outbreak, or 126th in the United States. The factors that CDC looked at to determine Grayson County's ranking are as follows. First of all, as far as population goes, Grayson County is ranked 43rd out of 120 Kentucky counties. So if everything were equal, all of the next factors that we look at would be at 43. Drug overdose deaths, we rank 30th. Controlled substance prescriptions, this is Casper data, you're ranked 29. Per capita income, poorer than what you would expect. You're ranked 86th. White population, 32nd. Buprenorphine prescribing and opportunity for treatment for people with substance use disorder, you do pretty poorly. You're ranked 106 out of 120. Unemployment, 33rd. Now these numbers probably don't surprise any of you since your residence here. Here's a number that might surprise you though. We look at your HIV testing trend for Grayson County. Again, ranking 40-something in population, you should be there with this as well. We looked at the number of tests from 2012 through 2016, looking at a per 100,000 population. Grayson County ranked 97. So it begs the question, what's going on? With so little HIV testing, would you really even know if Litchfield is having an HIV outbreak? The next question is, how would you engage with people who inject drugs to encourage them to get tested for HIV and hepatitis C and get linked to treatment, as well as treatment for substance use disorder? So this is where harm reduction and syringe exchange programs come into play. This, again, like I said earlier, was passed in 2015, going on 4 years ago now, in Senate Bill 192. And again, although this is new for Kentucky, 30 years of research have shown many things to us. They show that these programs do not encourage drug use. People who are already using don't use more. People who aren't using don't start using just because you can get a needle. And you've got a needle with it, right? If I give this to one of you, you want to start shooting up? It doesn't work that way. And you know that. It's more about substance abuse or substance use disorder. These programs are very effective at reducing the spread of infections. That's what they were originally designed for, and they have been extremely effective with that. They actually decrease crime in communities where they're established. They increase community safety. You should see fewer needles thrown in public parks because it's a safe place to dispose of them now. So it also increases first responder safety. And ultimately, one of the things that we've learned over the years is that it connects people to treatment. We don't want people shooting up. The fact is they do. And getting them into treatment is the ultimate goal many of us have with our prevention. So this is an issue across both houses, Republicans and Democrats. As a matter of fact, federal funding used to not be able to be used for syringe exchange programs until just a couple of years ago. And the two legislators that changed that were Mitch McConnell and Hal Rogers, both from here at home. Looking at what happened in Indiana and realizing what a hot mess their state was in. They helped change that law. Senate Bill 192 from 2015 has several components. Some of those are increasing the punitive issues for traffickers. These are the public health components that we've been talking about. The first one, of course, is that local option for syringe exchange programs to be run by the county health department. So this is your chance for action tonight. Part of that law also says after the Board of Health has approved it, then you also need to have approval from both the fiscal court and the city council or wherever the program would be operating. It's been amazing. In my 30-year career, I never thought we would see syringe exchange in Kentucky. And once the law was passed, I knew Louisville would sign on a new license that would, month after month after month. More and more counties are coming to realize that to deal with this opioid epidemic and this overdose epidemic, and by the way, it's not just opioids. Methamphetamine is injectable. And when someone's shooting up heroin or other opiates, they might inject 3 to 5 times a day. With methamphetamine, it's 10 to 20 times a day. So there's a great opportunity when they're sharing those needles to pass infections. And as you know, your city has approved it as well as the Board of Health. So it's working in Kentucky, at least for those places where it's been implemented. Grayson County, like I said earlier, was ranked 39 in Kentucky as being most likely to have an HIV outbreak. But now there's so many other counties signing on, you're getting left behind. You're right now at 19, most likely county in Kentucky, because you still don't have, 4 years later, you still don't have a syringe exchange program. This is the current map. Graves County, Kentucky, by the way, last night, just gave full approval. So that's one of the farthest western counties we've had approved so far. One of the interesting things about this map, by the way, is that much of western Kentucky is more involved in meth than opioids. But again, like I said, people who are injecting meth inject a whole lot more than opioid injectors. So it's important to consider that. Now, you've got a couple of neighbors here who are also on that map, Breckenridge and Edmonds, but you'll see on the far right that they don't rate nearly as high as you do in your risk. So I wouldn't be waiting on your neighbors to do something about this. This is something for you to deal with. The Kentucky Public Health website lists the guidelines of setting up these programs. This is not a willy-nilly approach. It's not just handing out needles. There's a whole lot more to the harm reduction approach, as we'll see in a brief video coming next, as well as the sites, addresses, and hours of each of the programs that are currently open. Another part of the public health part of Senate Bill 192 was to expand access to naloxone or Narcan. That's the overdose reversal drug for opioids. And here's where the video's coming in, and hopefully we'll get the microphone up here so that you can hear this.
Several more times, a mobile pharmacy that travels the state providing free doses of the opioid overdose reversal drug, naloxone, also known as Narcan. And partnership between the Kentucky Pharmacists Association and the Kentucky Department for Public Health.
The opioid crisis is not going anywhere anytime soon in the state of Kentucky, in this country. And we can all make a difference by being trained, prepared, and ready to do the same role. The great thing about naloxone is anybody can use it, but it's really that easy to educate you on how to use it.
You never know when someone may just go down and Walmart or Kroger. It's nice to have the people that have the ability to step in and do something.
The Visit by the Van is part of a community-wide opioid response effort, which also includes a needle exchange program. Ashley McCarty IV, a peer education specialist who works in the needle exchange program, also knows personally the value of this drug.
I wanted to get trained in how to dispense Narcan because I'm around individuals who may need that one day, working in the needle exchange program.
Like Ashley, many of the attendees are people who work at the health department. After last year's training, health department staff were actually faced with someone who had overdosed.
It had been one of our syringe exchange participants who comes faithfully, and I think it's because of that trust that the participant had in us that he brought his friend back here after he had overdosed and come knocking on our door, letting us know that his friend had overdosed, and we immediately responded. And fortunate for us, we had some doses on hand from some of the nurses who had went through the mobile pharmacy distribution a year before that. And they responded, they administered the naloxone, actually revived the guy. And, a lot of us saw it work firsthand, pretty amazing.
To those people who believe that distributing Narcan only encourages further use, people at the event had this to say.
This touches you, and you probably don't realize it. And we all can be part of the solution by just more trying to test people's lives and keep them not in isolation.
These people are sons, these people are daughters, these people are mothers, these people are fathers, And if somebody that family is going to do everything we can help.
It took me going through treatment 13 times to finally get clean and stay clean. That's the only hope we have, is just show them a little love and be persistent.
There is no one road to recovery. We need all the tools at our disposal that we can have, and we need to tailor people's treatment to the individual. What is most likely to work for them? You treat a disease of addiction that the criminal justice system is not terribly effective. We have good medications now that can treat an opioid use disorder. We've got more providers than we've ever had in substance use treatment. Still don't have enough, but we have more than we've ever had.
So another one of the successes we have in Kentucky is that we have enabling legislation that allows communities who choose to develop harm reduction syringe exchange programs. What they're primarily aimed at initially is decreasing the risk of the spread of infectious diseases, preventing hepatitis, and even more tragically, HIV. However, one of the most important things is this is not about syringes. This is not about a supply of needles. This is about the first step in the road to recovery. So ensuring that we co-locate harm reduction, Narcan, with syringe exchange, but also have treatment resources available. What we're seeing is people are using this. If they decide to take a positive step around their health and come to a syringe exchange, that's the first step.
And about 43 of these are across the state.
I think it's even higher than that.
Maybe higher than that.
Every day we get more communities asking for help and information. We're looking to fund their Narcan distribution. We're looking to fund co-locating treatment. So it is really exciting to see our set this, embrace this opportunity for folks to get treatment.
We have Dr. Artis Hogan with us, an infectious disease specialist for the Kentucky Department of Public Health. Thank you so much for being here. This is your area, and you know very well HIV and hepatitis C. So tell us about hepatitis C as it relates to the use of IV drug use.
Well, thank you, Renee. Yes, we have been actually dealing with this challenge for several years, actually more than that. But over the last 2 to 3 years of the Kentucky Department of Public Health, we've had a concerted effort to try and evaluate where we stand with hepatitis C. We know it is a problem. We are now 4th in the nation with acute hepatitis C cases. And if you look at the risk factor, the predominant one is injecting drug use.
Those numbers rising.
The numbers in Kentucky have been fairly flat over the last several years. On average, we'll have 350 to 360 new cases of HIV per year. But what we did see this past fall in northern Kentucky was a cluster of HIV cases developing, and all was centered around injecting drug use.
So needle exchange programs, in your view, would work to help those issues?
Absolutely. They are without a doubt a very important part of the entire harm reduction platform that we have to deal with. Not only it's not all about needles and exchanges. It's about education. It's about linking folks to treatment for HIV, hepatitis C, substance use disorder, you name it. But harm reduction platforms are very important.
And so that information is given at that point of contact when they visit those needle exchange sites.
Exactly. And everything that develops is great trust in those programs. So people repeatedly go to visit, they get instruction and education. As that trust develops, they are more willing to open themselves up to referral for care so that they are willing to accept treatment for their substance use disorder.
Thank you, Dr. Hogan. Tell us about what law enforcement is doing, Russell Holman, in this area of litigation.
Well, this crisis is important now. It's particularly important that we deal with treatment, particularly important we deal with prevention. So a critically important component is enforcement. So let me answer that first by saying what enforcement is not. Enforcement is not about arresting addicts. It's not about prosecuting those that are challenged by this epidemic. It's not going after the traffickers. It's about going after the drug trafficking organizations that, whether it's opiates or meth, as we discussed earlier, being brought in by drug trafficking organizations from across, mostly from across the southwest border. It's about aggressively taking down those and incarcerating those that are bringing this poison into our community. It's critically important to remember that this is a multi-front war. The other war remains methamphetamine. As much as the district that I serve, Oldham County down to the river counties in the west, we have one county, Jefferson, that has an opiate challenge. Every other county in that district, primary drug threat is for methamphetamine. And by the way, with Jefferson County, the number one drug we're seeing in Jefferson County is meth, but it's the opiates that are doing the acute killing.
Sorry about the volume issues on that. I hope you could make most of that out. So just taking a brief look at this is not so much a fiscal decision for you tonight, it's a humanitarian one. This program, I think Mendy's got it worked out to where it will mostly be paid for. ASAP grants, the Agency for Substance Abuse Policy, are one of the biggest funders of syringe exchange programs in Kentucky. That's the Department of Justice, you realize, that's behind that. The Kentucky Office of Drug Control Policy is where Van Ingram is. Van Ingram, you saw earlier, was basically saying, we've been trying to arrest ourselves out of this for years and it ain't working. The criminal justice system is not where you get drug treatment. CDC HIV prevention grant for the Kentucky Public Health also provides funding for these programs, as well as Hawaiian Life Care funds from Kentucky Public Health. Many charitable and philanthropic foundations are helping provide funding, hospitals, local physicians, and pharmacists. And then what those funds don't cover, the local health department funding covers. So this is the review of local options for you here in Grayson County. One, please do something to increase the HIV testing, because we really don't know if we have an outbreak happening here or not. With so few people getting tested. And that needs to be targeted testing. In other words, testing people mostly at risk, which would be the injection drug users. And the way to get them tested is to build trust with them through a syringe exchange program. That way they get to sit down with the county health department nurse every week and discuss things like abscesses, testing for Hep C, testing for Hep B, getting treatment for those and for HIV. Increase the naloxone distribution. Now that can also be done as part of the syringe exchange program as seen in the earlier part of the video. And increase use of drug treatment programs. As you saw the physicians and attorneys and other people talking about the treatment benefit from syringe exchange programs, I want you to realize that studies over the 30 years that we've had this kind of program in this country show that people involved with the syringe exchange program are 5 times more likely to get into drug treatment than those people who inject drugs who are not part of the syringe exchange program. So by not having a syringe exchange program, folks here in Grayson County don't have that impetus to get into treatment. All of these things are doable if you were to initiate a syringe exchange program. Dr. Lee?
You're already on the phone. Sir, would you get for the record, tell the clerk your name and who you're affiliated with so she
Yes.
can see the record?
I'm Greg Corby Lee. I retired from Kentucky Public Health June 30th. I start a new job tomorrow with the University of Kentucky as their harm reduction advisor for a new project that we're working on statewide.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure what I'm going to add. I know most of you have seen most of your kids, seen some of you when you were growing up. I have to say no one in this room is happy that we're even having to talk about this program. We would like not to have a needle exchange program. We would like not to need a needle exchange program. But nobody in this room, I think, and Greg mentioned this as well, but I bet there's hardly anyone, if we're honest, that hasn't had somebody in our family, a friend of a family member that has not been affected by this epidemic. Either substance abuse, has died from an overdose, has hepatitis C, has HIV, has something that is terrible. But it affects the whole community, and we're all affected by it. Even if it's not our child or our brother, which in many cases it has been. The problem is here. It isn't something we can ignore. We can't say this is somebody else's problem. These numbers were very impressive.
where Grayson County ranks, that we're at extremely high risk. I didn't realize we were that high risk. And while we're not Scott County, Indiana, the rate of hepatitis C in Kentucky, the rate of hepatitis C in Grayson County is much higher than this regular rate in Kentucky, other Kentucky counties. So we're, I don't know whether we could call this an epidemic based on statistics, but we have a significant number. And, we're talking about in Scott County about 220 people that have HIV. We're talking well over 200 people in Grayson County that have hepatitis C. And most of them are related to this issue, to the IV drug use. So it's a huge problem. We, in our practice, and we see children, but our practice, we have 8 or 10 babies that we're following right now, getting regular blood tests to see if they have hepatitis C. Their mothers had hepatitis C when they were born. They're at high risk. They're totally innocent. These are kids that have absolutely no say in this. Sometimes the moms are innocent. The dad may be the drug user and they got it from sex and not from shooting up drugs. But this is an issue and the numbers are real. We're dealing, the hepatitis C thing is a very real thing. The fact that we don't know about HIV in Grayson County is, I'm praying that we don't have those kind of numbers for HIV when we get more testing done. And we're not dealing with common criminals with what we're talking about, but everybody that uses drugs, uses these kinds of drugs, are breaking the law. And I know that there are many people in this audience that are thinking, are we not encouraging that behavior? Why are we encouraging these lawbreakers to continue doing what they're doing? Well, we're not. What we're trying to do, and I think Greg said it better than I could ever say it, is that we're really trying to protect our community. The harm reduction title to this program is maybe a better way to say it, but these diseases are out there. You can get them very innocently. And we don't want 10 babies in our county to have hepatitis C because their mothers have hepatitis C. Everybody that comes to this clinic is going to get counseling about stopping substance use. They're going to get advice about where they can go for rehab. A lot of people don't know what to do, where to go. I agree, some don't want to do that. They don't want to stop. But some do, and some, if they find themselves in a relationship that they're trusting, they will open up and say, this makes a lot of sense. I need to quit doing this. It's bad for my family, it's bad for my wife, it's my kids don't need to see this. They may not have their kids. We have, I can't tell you how many grandparents we have raising kids because of this issue. Now, they're going to get clean needles too, but that's part of this issue, not the whole program. I think equally important is this other thing, and they're going to get the opportunity to get tested. I believe Mindy said we can do the tests right in the health department. So if they're there, they want to be tested for HIV, they can get tested while they're there. They don't have to go to the hospital, they don't have to go to their doctor, they can get the test done. Drug addicts don't have very many places to turn for help, and our goal is to help them find these resources, to help them know what's available, what they can do now to help themselves. And then in the process, we're hoping that our community will remain as disease-free as possible. We don't have all the answers. I would like to say this is the perfect solution. There isn't a perfect solution to this problem. But to ignore that this is a problem and it's harming our community is the wrong thing to do. We have to recognize it. This is a step that we can take. It's a very real step. We won't prevent every case of hepatitis C, but maybe we can stop this curve going up like that. Maybe it will go like that, or maybe even down some. But it is terrible when we look at these curves, and Kentucky is above the nation on these curves of substance use and HIV and hepatitis C, and we're above the state average. We don't need to be there. And this is a solution that we can offer to the community. I think it is an opportunity that we may still be in front of the leading edge of this, and if we take this step now, I'm hoping we can prevent another Scott County, which would be terrible. So there's a lot more to say. Greg said it better than I can say it. And I don't know, is there other speakers?
One more.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Lee, we know you, of course, but could you state your name and
Yes.
where? No, we know you. Everybody knows you. Yeah, we don't know who you are. What's your
My
name?
name is Ashley McCarty before, and I work for Addiction Recovery Care. Is that okay if I name?
What's the last name?
McCarty Dufour, D-U-F-O-U-R.
And what agency are you with?
Addiction Recovery Care.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay if I hand you guys something?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we've talked about Hep C, we've talked about HIV, and I know you guys are probably concerned also about treatment. That's exactly what I do. I work in Franklin County, in Jessamine County, in Powell County, and in Harrisburg, and I'm a peer support specialist, and I work in the syringe exchange program, and I get people in treatment. One reason I've been doing this probably since March, but I have a connection with these people because I myself am a recovering addict. I've got 5 years and 6 months clean. And so this is very close to my heart. It's not just about giving the syringes, it's about giving hope. That's the reason that I got clean, because I saw people that instilled hope in me, because I had no hope at all. I was very suicidal. To start from the beginning, I want you guys to know it doesn't discriminate, because I came from a God-fearing, loving family, middle class. We went to church. I have a bachelor's degree. Just everything was perfect. And then I didn't start until I was about 20 years old, and I had a couple surgeries, and I got hooked on pain pills. I was a pharmaceutical sales representative. I was making over $100,000 a year. I did that for about 10 years. I've been places like Paris, France, Venice, Italy. I've traveled the world. But when I got on pain pills, I went downhill. And I lost my job as a pharmaceutical sales representative. So I moved back to my hometown, which was London, Kentucky, and tried to get a job, but I couldn't keep one. And then I started on methamphetamine. I started using ice. So I was using pain pills and meth. I was living in my car. I had lost my apartment. I had lost my family. If you guys can see there that I passed around, that's me. That's my picture 5.5 years ago. I think I look a little bit different. And it was because someone gave me hope. And that's exactly what I want to do whenever I go in these syringe exchange programs, is give these people hope. I've got some numbers if you're interested, like in Nicholasville. I've worked there since May. I've got I touch about 30, 40 lives in 2 days, because I work there 2 days. I work in Frankfurt 2 days, and I work in Powell County 1. But I've got about 10 people in treatment in Nicholasville. I've got about 10 people in treatment in Powell County. I got 5 people in treatment the very first day I worked that syringe exchange program. I got 5 people in treatment. Basically because the barrier is also broken down whenever I say, hey, they look at me and they think, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I say, well, I'm a recovering addict, got 5.5 years clean. I've been there. I may not have been through everything you've been through, but I've felt everything you've felt. And I needed hope. And that's what I give them when I talk to them about treatment. It's not forced on them because nobody could have forced treatment on me. I wouldn't have went. Did I go to jail? Yes. Was I court ordered to treatment? Yes, I was. I spent a year in treatment. And that's where I saw hope, was from those people. And so in Frankfurt, got about 14 people in treatment. Harrisburg, I've only been there a couple of times, but I've got 2 people in treatment there. So I just travel around, talk to them. I actually work the exchange. So they come in, they see me one-on-one. I actually talk to them about HIV testing, getting their Hep A shot. That's a population that runs in 2. So they're there getting tested for HIV and Hep C. They can also get a Hep A shot. That reduces the risk of that. And I'm more than willing to come down here and help, or send somebody down here and help, so that you guys have somebody, if you pass this syringe exchange program, you have somebody there that's in recovery, that can talk to them, that can relate to them, that can get them in treatment. My company that I work for, Addiction Recovery Care, we have a maternity center, we have a crisis center, we have 3 men's centers, we have 3 women's centers, and we also do MAT. So we're all across Kentucky. And I do a direct intake when they come in. If they say, I want treatment, it might be the 12th time they come in, but it could be the first time. But if they want treatment, I do a direct intake. I get on my computer, type it in, get them an appointment, or get them on a waiting list. They don't have to wait that long with our company because we do a multi-phase approach. And so they're coming in and going out 30 days, and then 4 to 6 more weeks, and then 6 to 8 more weeks. They can do an internship, and they can do vocational rehabilitation with our company also. And if they say clean a year, then they're guaranteed a job with our company. So that's how we kind of work. So I do it directly on the spot as they're sitting there. No, here's a referral, or here's some numbers. Go call these numbers. If somebody just gave me numbers and I left, I just would have thrown them away. If somebody says I can get you in treatment right now, if I'm ready, then I'm ready. So I just want you guys to know that this is a connection to get with people like me. I'm one of those people. It's a connection to touch lives. It's not enabling at all. It's giving them that hope and that encouragement that they don't get anywhere else. Like today, one came in and she was freezing, her hands were red. I went out to my car and gave her my pair of gloves, because I know how it feels to not have anybody and not be able to go anywhere and get anything. But they grow this relationship and this connection with these people at these health departments. And you see people's lives change. So that's all I've got.
Dr. Kenneth Green, I'm family practice, 34th year of practice, and I represent the medical staff of the Twin Lakes Regional Medical Hospital. And I want to tell you that in terms of us looking at this problem, we wanted to know what the medical staff, what their position was on this. So last week in the medical executive committee, they voted that we represent, this represents our entire medical staff, that we are behind a harm reduction program, such as a needle exchange program, to help our those that we serve. And then also tonight, there's also the Hospital Foundation board meetings going on, and they passed a resolution as well that they are behind a harm reduction program as this needle exchange program to be able to help us to get this problem cornered in some way. I think that Greg, as he's presented information about hepatitis C and HIV, I think those newer graduates and myself, as I graduated 34 years ago, hepatitis C and also endocarditis, other diseases that are from this problem that we have, are so rampant now. And I applaud this young lady for coming up and presenting a little bit of her story, because those of us in the health field, we have a passion for this. I've had so many people that have been through that suicidal ideation, and those that have had overdose attempts, and those that have been in the old CCU and in our current CCU, and each of us that are taking care of those patients, it's not only the patient, but it's the family, and it's the family a lot of times that need us as much or more than the patient themselves need it. And I just looked around at the number of people here. This epidemic as such, nationwide is 4.5% to 5%, or our nation is infected with hepatitis C. Most of which, and as he said, 60% of the county hasn't even been tested. But it's becoming part of our preventive maintenance testing and so forth, that we incorporate some of this testing. Currently, the baby boomers are part of that testing population. We want to make sure that we offer it to them. But this doesn't show up as far as symptoms and so forth till later. And then the cost is somewhere around $60,000 to $100,000 per person. And as I said, I looked around here, there's potentially 5 or 6 people that are infected with hepatitis C in this room, based on the rates that we know that exist. So, yes, we have a problem, and I want to go back and liken it to what it was like as public health came into the picture and potable or drinkable water came on the scene. If we were at that time in our forefathers' lives of them making a decision, we're going to have potable water. We're going to have some laws that restrict where we can put our toilet, where we can have our water piped into our house, where we're going to have all of this. And there became some laws that had to be, that we were able to then have potable or drinkable water. And I think that in some ways, Scott County proving this in Indiana, that we have some problems that are on the horizon that we may not be able to get the loop or the noose around that problem. And I'm just going to say that sometimes things aren't always like we think they are. And I'm going to liken this to my son killing a copperhead snake a couple of years ago. Threw it up in the back of the truck and just said, killed that copperhead. So we were glad he killed this copperhead. The next day, he looked in the back of the truck, and there were about 100 baby snakes that had already hatched out of that mother snake. And so and we know that venom is even as harmful as what the venom is, more so than the mother snake. So how do we know that we haven't got baby snakes on the way? Thank you. Magistrates have any questions for the presenters that they would like to ask at this time?
I got one. How can we, our county as a whole, how can we get this information to our county? Our county right now, you go out here, you talk to these people, and they're against this. How can we, get the information out to these people?
Well, Neil, we had the public health forum, advertised it well. All we can do, some people just don't want to learn about it, I don't think, but all we can do, I'm willing to talk to anybody anytime. I'm open arms to anybody who wants to talk about it. Maybe the media, getting it out. But we're doing our very best getting it out there. And if we hold a forum, like you was there, you've seen, if no one shows up, there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe the media will do a good job, telling about it.
Any other magistrates got questions for the panel that presented?
How many hepatitis C cases are you from a dirty needle?
There's some discrepancy, but we do know there is at least 200 to 300 cases in Grayson County. And there may be as many as 800, where there's some difference in interpreting data, but if there is 250 in Grayson County, that's way more than the average for the state. We know there's at least that many.
And that's from the dirty needle.
I'm sorry?
And that's from
Most of
needles.
it is from dirty needles. You can get it from sex. And if you're married to a drug user, he would, and he has it, you could get it from him. But it's a significant problem. And it's, as Kim was saying, to treat it, it's in $100,000 to treat it. And somebody's going to pay for that. These are all going to be people that we're paying for.
I was also going to add to that. They come in, a large majority of these people that come in, I have to ask them when they come in, do you have Hep C, or do you want to be tested for Hep C or whatever? The majority of them have Hep C, but when they find out, they're in shock, but then they're concerned because they've been sharing needles, and then they want to stop. They don't want to share needles anymore. They realize what they're doing to themselves and other people, because they had no clue they had Hep C till they came in this health department and somebody asked them, would you like to be tested? Well, sure. They don't think they have it, and then they do, and it's just horrible to them. And they realize what they're doing, and they want to straighten up.
I'd like to jump into one of the things that Ashley brought up was hepatitis A, which we really didn't talk about in my presentation, but Kentucky's been suffering on with heightened numbers of hepatitis A. You've probably seen that in the news. And much of that, again, is in the same population. And that's one of the public health benefits to the syringe exchange program is we can vaccinate the person who's injecting drugs for hepatitis A and B. And we often do that in the syringe exchange programs.
I couldn't hear very well when the film's being played, but my question is directed to you. These counties that have implemented this program and have had it going for a few years, have you seen a decrease in hepatitis cases? Is the needle exchange contributing to the cases dropping in numbers, or at least not exceeding?
Much to the same reasons that Dr. Lee was alluding to, Kentucky Public Health hasn't the greatest surveillance system for hepatitis, so we can't prove that yet. And we only, within the last 2 months, created a statewide database for all of the syringe exchange programs to use. So time will tell. Good question.
Any other questions about the matters of town?
Can I chime in one more part of that answer?
Yes, sir.
Although this is new in Kentucky, other states that have had these programs for years, we don't see hepatitis C rates like we see in Kentucky. So there's pretty good evidence that those programs do work other places.
So like in Louisville, well, they said they have more dirty needles on the streets now than they did after they passed it.
That would be a concern, and I don't know that that's the case that they have more dirty needles, but one of the things that a lot of communities, and I think Louisville is actually looking at this, I know Indianapolis has been looking at it, is to have safe disposal places for those syringes, even if the person's not going into the syringe exchange program, but just a place to put them.
They've got it.
In Louisville? Good.
But they did say they have a lot more dirty needles laid like on the streets or parks.
But they're 800,000 population,
Right.
and we're a rural community. Rural community counties, they have decreased in every single county that there's needle exchange.
It's decreased in Frankfurt, it's decreased in Nicholasville, Powell County. You'd be surprised, these people will, I had needles come in that had mud all over them that were not theirs, that they found had been there for years. And they brought them into the exchange program because they care about the community. You don't think they do, you don't think we care, but they brought these needles in that were covered in mud. They brought them to the exchange. So they pick up needles they find also.
The Board of Health recently decided to go with what's called Vantage Point. This is one of those needles that actually retracts. And so what the person will do is, I don't know, this is kind of tiny for everybody to see.
Don't stick me.
Oh, I'm not going to stick anybody. And it is sterile. So, you know, oops, I didn't mean that. No, I don't do this so much, but, you know, they'll put the drug in there, and then they'll inject the drug, and the needle's gone. So if that's on the ground, that's really hardly an issue, other than I wouldn't want it on the ground. But at least you're not going to be stuck with the needle that's been retracted.
Can you not enforce to get the test? If they come in for needles, you can't enforce to get the HIV test and stuff? Or counseling, you cannot enforce that, you just ask them, right?
We counsel every time they come in.
I get
It's not
that, but you-
necessarily, you know, they may not think it's counseling.
But if
It's
you ask
not-
them if they want counseling, they say no, then that's just the end of it.
Well, we
right?
may say, hey, you need to wipe with alcohol, or you need to do this, and
Yeah.
that's considered counseling. We're not gonna force anything.
Right.
And it's like any other healthcare provider, we cannot mandate them to do anything. But it's a finger stick, it's not a blood draw, it's a rapid stick. So if I had to go in and just get one drop of blood to be HIV and Hep C tested, they're more likely to do that than try to get a vein, because IV drug users do not have good veins, so it's.
Do we have any numbers of, are there any data or any numbers out there of children being stuck with needles, or people being stuck with needles that they find in, say, parks or anything? Is there any?
I don't know any Kentucky data on that, but again, other states where they have these programs, law enforcement says they have a 66% reduction in needle sticks when there's a syringe exchange program in the community.
Anyone else? Questions? Last year's got questions.
Is this strictly Grayson County, or the surrounding counties come to get the 15 days?
Surrounding counties can come.
Wherever.
And it's ASAP, it's ASAP money, so yes, they can come from wherever. And they're monitored through our Red Cap system, so we would be using Red Cap, and it's a new system that the Department of Public Health uses. And so if they went to Louisville Metro, which we have people in our county now that's going to Louisville Metro and Nelson County and Warren County, then if they came there, they'd have the same ID number with us, so we could track that as well.
While you're saying that, how much money is available at this time for this system?
So,
Per month or year, however you want to divide it up?
Through Kentucky ASAP funding, $10,000 has been secured for fiscal year 19 for this syringe.
For the fiscal year?
Yes.
Who pays for it after the $10,000 is done?
we've also applied for grants, and the state, we just found out that Department of Public Health, we're giving $2.9 million to health departments, so we've applied for all those grants as well, and we are guaranteed $4,000 from the Department of Public Health, but that's just till June, and then the funding starts over again.
The position that I'm beginning tomorrow at the University of Kentucky is a part of a project that's going to be working statewide to hire 25 people to come to counties like Grayson County now with the syringe exchange program too. And that's one of the biggest costs of these programs. It's not the needles. Needles are cheap. It's a staffing.
I've got a question that may not, if it's directed to anybody, I guess. Is there any liability in this county? Are we liable?
If I may speak, there are several programs across the state in different counties. And from what I've found, there's no increased liability as far as someone perhaps overdosing in the parking lot or that situation. It's just the same liability that comes with any kind of medical facility. Sue on any period of liability to the life, they cannot make it through judgment in the court system. I haven't researched this fully, but my initial impression is that there's no increased liability that I see.
Would you want to research it for them? I don't think it would be necessary to research it for the liability of the county as a whole, financially and otherwise.
If the court believes it's necessary, I will be happy to research it.
What is your opinion, no, sir?
My opinion is that at this point, I don't see an impression of liability.
Ashley, I got a question for you. Did a needle exchange program get you into rehab?
No, it did not. No, it did not. I went to jail. I was in jail for about 8 months, and I got court ordered to rehab. But what I tried to focus on, and what I tried to get across is that whenever I did go to rehab, it was the people there that cared for me, that showed me that somebody cared about Ashley. And that's what these syringe exchange programs do, is there's people there that care about these people, that on the streets, when we pass them and we look at them and we give them that look. But at the health department, these people give them, like I said, hope. They care about them. And that's what saved me.
How many years was you on drugs?
About 12. 10 to 12.
Over 12 years, how many people told you you need to straighten up, you need to go to rehab and all that type of stuff?
I hid it very well. I was a functioning addict for a very long time until I got on meth. And then it was quite obvious, and I was on meth at the very end. And then they tried to get me to go to rehab, but I didn't think I had a problem. Even when I went to rehab, I didn't think I had a problem, and I was in rehab, and I had just sat in jail for 8 months, and I thought I did not have a problem.
Was you the one that decided that you had a problem?
Yeah, when I was around other people that had the same problem as me, but they were a upstanding citizen now, law abiding and all that stuff, that's when I said, you know what, maybe I have a problem and I want to be like them.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? What's that? Yeah, if y'all don't have any other questions, I'm gonna offer Jeremy, I'd like for you to speak on this program, Norman, Jason, and also we've got the Commonwealth Attorney here with us, and Rick, if you wanna say something, I'd be willing to let you speak as well. So,
And then Senator Harris here too.
yeah, he is, I couldn't see him back there. So, Rick, if you want to speak now, or if.
Well, I get to go first.
Yeah.
I'm Rick Horton, just newly elected as Commonwealth Attorney. Obviously, I've been doing something much different than focusing on this program, so most of what I've heard in here today. One of the wonderful things about information is that we can buttress it up any way we want. I think I heard one gentleman say this needle exchange program is 5 times more effective for people to get into rehab. How does he know that? How do we know about the other people who get into rehab? They're not in the needle exchange program. You've been hit with information such as social comparison theory. Look at all the map. Look at, you should be like all the people around you. You've been hit with principles such as scarcity principle. This is a limited time thing. You've been thrown with death, with HIV. You've been thrown all these different pieces of information that have nothing to do with needles whatsoever. What our issue is before us today, and what you guys are going to be looking at, is individuals. You don't start out, or I'm not aware of very many people who have started out with a needle. That's not where the drug use generally begins. That's generally the end. That's when the entire dopamine system in the brain has crashed. That's why you don't recognize these people. That's why it's so hard to help these people, to get at these people. And that analyzes the question. At that point in time, what do we do about the needles? are the information that you're gonna get to these people. We can't mandatorily HIV test them when they come in. That's not effective, doesn't help us in any way. We can't run any test on them whatsoever. We can't force them into counseling at that point in time. And one of the more important things is these needles are illegal, and they're illegal for a reason. Once you get to that person, once you get to that level of addiction with that individual, the needle is the worst enemy. It's a loaded 45. That's all it is. The most important thing, the stat that you saw that they put up there today, were 27 overdoses in Grayson County. How much do you want to bet most of those were by needles? Anybody have that stat? Did you hear that? Didn't put that stat. How many of our overdose deaths occurred because of needles? Those are the questions we should be asking. That's the information that was not presented. I don't like being influenced by numbers, by social comparison, by things that actually mean nothing. And at the end of the day, hepatitis is spread more by sex than anyway, and nobody can prove otherwise because we don't know. Nobody knows what the hep rates were in California or Oregon or Texas, all the places up on the screen prior to the introduction of that. From my knowledge, what that chart showed is we've always had a hep problem in Kentucky. Well, we haven't had a major opioid epidemic in Kentucky. When did that come about? Even when we went back 50 years ago, did we have a hep problem back then? How come we're not being told those numbers? I'd be very, very cautious on the information that you received today, and remember that the primary instrument of what we are talking about here are needles, and people overdose from needles.
Thank you, Greg. Jeremy?
Judge, I have a little bit more leveled take on this. And as I'm not a magistrate, but I am involved in the criminal justice system and I also represent this county, the two most compelling sides I've heard here today, one is obviously the spread of the disease to the innocent children, to the babies. I mean, they can't control that, I understand that. The spread of disease to other individuals that perhaps aren't drug users. That, I believe, should be, in my personal opinion, what you've asked, should be on the minds of the magistrates. The counterpoint to that on the other side, however, is the consideration that if we form, this court approves the needle exchange program, that we will be the only one kind of within this area. The influx of people from outside of the county to come, these participants to come get the needles could perhaps encourage travel into this county of drug users. That is the side of criminal justice, I guess the prosecutor and me that is concerned about that as a citizen. Those are the only comments I have today. Those seem to be the most important that I've heard today, and I'm the magistrate's office.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any magistrates, you have any questions or anything at this time? Senator Meredith?
Thank you, Judge, and thank you, Fiscal Court. I know this is not an easy decision by any means, and don't think that it's a good decision or a bad decision, whatever decision tonight. You have to come to a decision that's best for this community. And like Jerry and I talked before the meeting, my take on this is evolved and changed 180 degrees. Originally, when I heard this program, I thought, are you kidding me? We're going to empower these people to do more drug use, really? And I have to admit that I developed an opinion out of ignorance more than anything else. I have never been identified with people who want to do drugs. It just doesn't make sense to me. But obviously people do. But what I have learned is once you've made that decision and you stepped over that line, you are no longer the person you used to be. It surely has become a mental illness because that addiction is the most important thing in that person's life. My son Bryce was here tonight, and the DOT during his rescue program, he would try to save people from drug overdose with Narcan in the ER, and they would fight him because they wanted that high and wanted life itself. I don't think this empowers those people. They're going to do it anyway, whether it's a dirty needle or a clean needle, they're going to do it. I don't think that means that we shouldn't show them some mercy anyway, because they're not themselves. And you stay long enough with this problem, just like this young lady did, it's important thing to say, enough is enough. I've got to change. But just because they made bad life decisions for themselves, is that really for us to judge and say, you don't deserve any mercy? You can die for all you care. I'm quite sure that's probably where I was. And that's so unfair. If we're going to hold life precious, we need to give people every opportunity they possibly can to save themselves. It's called mercy. It really is. But what really slowed me over this is there's a lot of innocent victims in this. Obviously, family members who lose family members to this, so tragic. I can't think of anything worse for a parent to lose a child to a drug overdose. But even beyond that, think of the healthcare workers. Now, I don't know how many we have in Grayson County, but I'm sure it's well in excess of 1,000. But you can imagine every interaction they have with the patient, they're putting their life and even the family members' lives in danger. I saw him about the first or second month he was in his new office, and he had an employee who had a needle stick. Panic immediately, because you're thinking everything worse. And that worse is out there. Dr. Lee spoke to it very well. We have a problem. And the worst thing that you guys want to see is for us to become Scott County, Indiana. And it can happen because the population's larger. We've got the 2 lakes, which brings in all kinds of transient population. We've got this parkway where we get all kinds of people through here. So if the deciding factor in this thing is to show our healthcare workers that we can afford them the protection that they deserve. Why should they be placed with this burden? Is it going to eliminate it altogether? No, it's not even going to begin to. But it decreases the probability of them contracting these deadly contagious diseases. Don't we at least hold them that type of protection? I think we do. Now, this is a problem that's not going to go away in any time in the future. I was at a meeting in Barren River today, Barren River Area Health Department, and they talked about the determinants of health problems. There's 1,000 different reasons for it, but 40% is attributed to poverty. And as you saw the statistics earlier, Grayson County is kind of unique. We've got a lot of great things going for us. And this is a great county. I love it more than life itself. But you look at our social economic profile, and we look more like Eastern Kentucky than we do Central Kentucky because of our poverty. And I know that the judge, I know you folks are committed to improving the economy of this region. And when we do that, I guarantee you, we'll see less of these social problems. But we're not there yet. But we need a bridge. We need something to give us time. We need something that's going to help us move forward and give everybody a chance to prosper. And I know this is the right decision. I need to make it for you. You're going to be faced with a lot of tough decisions and badges. You know, I learned in 30 years of hospital administration, there's only 4 decisions that you can possibly make. The first one is a popular decision. That's a good decision. And that's the one we all want, but very rarely do you ever get it. And then there's the popular decision that's a bad decision. That's one we're supposed to still pat you on the back, say good job, but you'll find out years down the road it was a bad decision, but they'll forget about it by then. Then there's the bad decision, that's an unpopular decision. That's the one that gets you fired or keeps you from getting reelected. None of us want those. But the toughest decision, and the only one that truly requires leadership skills, is that unpopular decision that is the right decision. And unfortunately, I think this one falls in that category. This is not an easy decision. It's not going to be a popular decision. I believe in my heart that this is truly right for Grayson County at this point in time. I think Darren and I talked about him, and we'll talk about it later, is, you know, you're not married to this forever. Why not try it for a year and see if our worst fears come to realization? We might be surprised. All the good things that should happen could happen, and I think will happen. But we'll never know until we try. But if we don't try, I think we're left with those negative consequences that we're talking about. This is a dangerous, dangerous situation. I wouldn't wish Hep A on anyone. I certainly wouldn't wish Hep C on anyone with HIV. we've kind of discounted over the years because it's not as dangerous as it used to be. It's still dangerous. So that's just 3 diseases. There's a host of others that's there. The worst source sees use drug needles. Again, my thoughts and prayers are with you. I know it's not an easy decision, but I would certainly embrace and endorse this needle exchange program. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Thank you.
Norman, you got anything? Jason?
Since this is a regular scheduled fiscal court meeting, I want to go ahead and cover our activity for the year. We're going to have to do it next month. That's okay with you?
Yeah, we'll do it later. We're just going to do the needle exchange thing.
Okay, well, it kind of goes along with what I'm talking about, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover it. That's okay.
Yeah.
We attempted to serve over 4,767 papers. We served about 1,896 of them. We made 743 criminal arrests, 60 DUIs, 685 extra patrols. We answered over 8,502 calls for service. That means our deputies responded to calls. 292 cases open, special 200 details, 361 motorist assists, 505 collisions, and over 2,060 vehicle inspections. And that's my guys. That's what they do on a daily basis throughout the regular shift. Regardless of what is decided here today, I'm going to walk out of here with a smile. Everybody's still going to be my friend, I would hope, because I respect everyone in here. I respect, certainly because a lot of you have treated me. I hope you still treat me when I leave here today. As a matter of fact, the health department came by the office today, gave me my second round of Hep A shot, along with some of my deputies. So I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have a video. I just have a few comments I'd like to make. I do want to clear up a few things. We do not confiscate needles in and of themselves on a traffic stop. The only time we take needles from someone is if we find drugs that go along with them. For example, if we find marijuana, or we find a pipe in a vehicle, that's not considered paraphernalia unless it's got marijuana in it or there's marijuana next to it. Same thing with needles. We're not going to go around taking people's needles, so I want to clear that up right away so I know that was covered. Although I don't have a PowerPoint, I don't have a video, I have done some homework on it. Hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your all's questions. I've talked to doctors, I've talked to nurse practitioners, addiction counselors, drug addicts, and task force detectives when this needle exchange program came up. Even talked to some members of Jefferson County as well as some of the Nelson County detectives that work on our task force, our drug task force. And I know the comment was made that it decreases crime. I don't know how somebody sitting behind a computer in another state or in Washington, D.C. or anywhere can say that it reduces crime when they're not on the front lines out there working these calls that we work on. They're not out there investigating these crimes. As a matter of fact, one of my deputies is retired LMPD, Sonny Petit. One of the things that they do in their needle exchange program is that these drug dealers use that to entice other drug addicts. Basically, they sell a kit with clean needles in it to give to these people, and that's how they entice more drug users to use that. Now, you might say, well, at least they're getting a clean needle with their drugs. That might be the case, but I don't necessarily trust a drug dealer to give me a clean needle, if you know what I'm saying. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. I don't have the education, certainly, that these doctors have, that many of the representatives they have here today. But I do want to say that I do applaud the efforts of all the speakers that are here today, either for or against it. And Ashley, I want to personally say something to you. It takes a lot of courage to get up here in front of a group of adults and admit that you were a drug addict at one time. And that takes a lot of courage. And I see it come in my office. I see people come in my office, and I know that they need help. I have drug addicts in my family. And so my hat's off to you, and I want to thank you personally for being here today and talking to this group. This is a very controversial topic, and I applaud everybody for coming here, standing up for what they think is right. Some of the problems I have with the needle exchange program is the anonymity of it. One of the questions that I would have is, when we have an overdose death due to a needle, which would be pretty obvious because a lot of times the needle's stuck in their arm, or we have a needle laying beside them, are we going to be able to get with Joe Brad, the coroner, and check to see if that person was a user of the needle exchange program. Not because we want to down the needle exchange program, but if we're going to be giving statistics on how needle exchange programs, the good things about the needle exchange program, and not showing the ugly side of it, then we're only getting one side of the situation, if you know what I'm saying. So the way I understand it is that the people using this program are going to be given ID numbers. So there's no way to be able to identify that if somebody leaves the health department with needles, whether they get in the hoot, is there going to be somebody there to check and make sure they don't get in the car with a child? Is there going to be somebody to monitor that? Is there going to be somebody to monitor that on their trip home, where they shoot up in the parking lot? So are they going to be found, or is Joe Brad or the coroner, deputy coroner, going to be able to find out if John Doe on a case that he works at death, whether they were part of the needle exchange program? So my question is, when there's a fatality, a robbery, a child death, where needles and drugs are found, are we going to be able to access health department records to see if they were a needle exchange client? So we can document the ugly side of it. So let's say this needle exchange program is passed, and we reduce hepatitis and HIV. Let's say by 10 in 1 year. I'm just throwing, I don't know the statistics. So we reduce that by 1 year. But can they guarantee that maybe, let's say 10 fewer people get hepatitis or HIV, but 4 or 5 die as a result of a drug overdose? What is a victory? Reducing the number by 20 hep cases versus 4 people that are killed by the needle that they used and they got from the health department? Is that a success? How do we measure that success? If 4 people died, but we reduce the cases by 12, and the problem with that is like I said, there's nothing to tie the people that overdose on these drugs, and that might be the reason why some of these numbers are going down, because the drug users are simply dying, and they're not there to spread the disease. They can't say that that's not happening because there's no statistics to provide that. Because you can't check with the needle exchange program to see if they were a user because they overdosed. I would like to see a study that follows a program where you see how long the users utilize the program and why they don't use it anymore. So if they use it and they don't use it, I would like to see a study that shows why they don't use the program. Because if you have 100 people that use the program, and the next year those 100 people are no longer using the program, the same amount of needles are going to be on the streets. Or the same amount of needles are going to be distributed. Then you've just got just as many dirty needles out there as you did before. Because if they're not using the needle exchange program anymore, one of 4 things has happened. They got off the drugs, which statistics will probably show you that that's probably not the case. They're still using dirty needles, or they're in jail, or they're dead. Those are the 4 scenarios that we're probably looking at. As recent as a week ago, I had 3 recovering intravenous drug users sitting in my office. I asked them about using the needle exchange program, as I have asked many while the sheriff's office was being remodeled. We had many of the inmates in there, and I wanted to know from them, would you use a needle exchange program? And some of them said yes. Most of them said yes, and they would be shooting up before they left the parking lot. These are people that I have spoken with. The 3 that were in my office, one of them said yes, they would use a needle exchange program. The other one abstained from answering the question. And the third one said yes, they would go in, get 20 needles, and they would go, because they don't use by themselves. She said that she would go with her friends and she would use the needles until they're up. And if they didn't have enough needles to go around, they would use dirty needles. So yes, they're going to use dirty needles anyway. And this is very, it's not a political issue to me at all. But one of the comments was made about how much we pay for to treat HIV, to treat the hep cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, we're already paying for it. I'm not part of the statistics in the state police that keep track of it. I'm not a part of the FBI that tracks crime stats or anything like that. But I have worked in law enforcement for 25 years. And I've taught a drug prevention program in this county for 24 of those 25 years. And I know that the majority of the crime that we have in Grayson County is drug related, period. And most of the cases we work, whether it's a simple theft, whether it's a burglary, whether it's a robbery, whether it's a homicide, whether it's assault, it's somehow drug related. And that in and of itself costs us money. Why do you think our insurance rates are so high? Why do you think our homeowners insurance is so high? Why do you think our medical insurance is so high? Because we're having to pay for it already through the crimes and stuff. That's why I covered the stats that my guys do on a daily basis. It's costing us money. It's costing us money to treat them, and it's costing us money to be with, to pay for the ones that are committing these crimes that are causing our taxpayers their money for their insurance and everything else. So it does cost us. It already does. I want to finish with this. It's very simple. We saw a video on Narcan, and Thad Storms, who I think very highly of, has been in my office a few times. And Thad first approached me with using Narcan for providing Narcan for my guys to administer to our citizens that need it, or those that overdose on opioids. And I must admit, I was neither for it nor was I against it. But before I embraced that, I wanted to find out what other agencies were doing and how they were using it. And I went to places that had it. I talked to other officers that used Narcan. And I found out how it was administered. I checked with other agencies to see how they were handling it, and I must admit, I was a little unclear of, I thought my guys were going to be going around with needles and shooting people with Narcan, and that's not how it worked. We have the nose spray that they spray up there. So I was a little confused. So I did my research and checked on it, and I found out that we weren't giving people shots. I checked with other officers who had administered it to see if it worked. And they said it absolutely worked. As was said before, they're usually fighting mad when they come out of that because that high is so addictive. They want to get that high again. In other words, I went to those on the front lines of this war on drugs and saw firsthand how Narcan gave addicts a second chance, a third chance, and in some cases a fourth or fifth chance. Because I'll tell you, if I've Narcan somebody 6 times and they're laying there and need to be Narcan the 7th time, I'm going to Narcan them. I'm going to give them Narcan every single time. Because as Ashley said, it took her 12 years to get clean. And if it takes 7 times of overdosing on opioids and I can save someone's life by giving them that Narcan, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I made I told myself one simple test. As sheriff of this county, I cannot stand up here and tell you that my son or daughter will never be addicted to drugs. I try to do the right thing. And as a parent, if you think you have more control over your kids than their friends do, you're sadly mistaken. And I admit that. But I will tell you that if it were my son or daughter that was laying there and had overdosed on opioids, would I want another officer to give them Narcan? The answer is, of course, yes. Every time. If it was me and my son or daughter was at home and he or she overdosed on opioids, would I give them Narcan? Yes, absolutely. No matter how many times it happens. A lot of people were telling me, I think you should give them Narcan 3 times. After that, let them die. Absolutely not. I don't believe that, and I never will. So now all my deputies have access to Narcan. They all should, and those that are trained have it in their vehicle. And I know of at least 4 or 5 occasions that they've used it and saved someone's life. We don't want a pat on the back. We don't get a pat on the back. We usually get assaulted after we administer it. But we'll keep administering it. So fast forward to where we are today. And I ask myself that same question. If my son or daughter or loved one was addicted to shooting drugs in their veins, would I want a government agency giving them needles to shoot drugs in their veins? And the answer is unequivocally, absolutely not. And I'm not going to ask each one of you guys in here today. I'm going to ask it a general question. I don't want everybody to answer this question. But I will address the fiscal court. If your child had an addiction of shooting up drugs in their veins, would you stand by and give them a clean needle? Would you give your child a clean needle to shoot drugs in their veins? I wouldn't. I would hug them up. I would embrace them. I would do everything in my power to get them help. And that's what we need to do today. Not through a needle. Not through giving them needles. I agree with our health officials. We have an epidemic. Our epidemic is drug abuse and drug addiction. And in my opinion, the needle exchange program is not the answer to that. And I just simply leave you with that question. Would you give your child a needle to shoot drugs in their veins? And if the answer is no, then why would you give it to a stranger? I want to thank you all for the opportunity to get up and say my side of it. Again, I want to thank our health care officials and everybody that's here today. This is something that's been weighing on my heart, and I felt the need to say what I needed to say. And I hope, like I said, when we leave here today, no matter what's decided, we'll go with whatever the court decides today. Thank you.
Kevin, can I speak?
Yeah, Mindy, I'm gonna let you and Dr. Lee speak. I'm gonna let Jason speak.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm gonna let you and Dr. Lee sort of do a rebuttal, I guess you would say, so. Because I don't think it's fair not to let you all go ahead and say, you know.
Because this was what we're presenting.
Yeah, exactly. So Jason, if you don't care.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I've researched, spent several hours researching this. Of course, I'm like everybody else, mostly my source for that's online. I've talked to Mindy 2 or 3 times. You can find, I spent over 5 hours today reading articles and studies and looking at stats, and you can find stats for both sides. I found an article out of, I think it was Vancouver, that was done by a health agency of some sort that's basically giving the same numbers that you guys are giving. But what stuck out the most to me was that they were saying that sharing of needles went down a certain percentage, which I don't remember the exact number, but it was a pretty sizable number once the needle exchange program went into place. And the use of heroin went down for that particular area in the state because of, or after needle exchange went into place. So I looked a little more and kind of focused on that area to try to find numbers from just that area. And these were a little old. They were from the early 2000s. I think if I read it right, needle exchange program started in the 80s in that area. So they've been doing it for a long time. But I found another article that was written through a news agency that focuses on law enforcement and corrections and that type of stuff. And they had the exact same numbers, only they were flopped, saying that everything went up. So you can find online both sides. You can find just as much negative as you can find
positive for these needle exchange programs. I've given my opinion to my magistrate, Tommy, but I haven't talked to any of the rest of you about it. A little bit to Darren when we walked in today. And I wasn't trying to influence Tommy, I just gave him my opinion on stuff. It's their vote if they choose to vote, whichever way they choose to vote. And I'm like Norman, whatever we decide or they decide tonight, I'm going to accept and we're going to move forward with whatever that decision might be. And a couple of things that were said. Well, first off, you guys all know that we have trash detail that we do in the county. We pick up, typically it's over 20 tons of trash per year off the sides of the roads in Grayson County. And we do pick up needles. I have 8 trucks that go out every day with 4 inmates and 1 deputy, at least 4 inmates. And each of those trucks have a sharps container in them. I can't tell you what we picked up last year because I didn't really have a need to keep up with it, but I can tell you today that I'm going to start keeping up with it. It's not a tremendous amount, but we picked up some. I did have a deputy 6 or 8 months ago that got stuck with a dirty needle because he didn't handle it properly. So we did some training, and hopefully that won't happen again. There's needles out there now. One of my fears is that we're going to see more needles. This collapsible syringe is great, but I watch inmates make tattoo guns out of ink pens and toothbrushes. I guarantee you there's people out there that can take that syringe and still figure out a way to use it. I guarantee it. That doesn't mean everybody's going to, but it will happen. If we're going to do it, then we need to use those syringes, definitely.
It's already been passed.
The other thing that was mentioned is that the criminal justice system is not where you go to get treatment. I can also tell you, working in the criminal justice system for 18 years, that in a lot of the counties across the state of Kentucky, that is the only place you can find treatment for substance abuse. Outside of maybe Alcoholics Anonymous. There are a lot of successful programs in the state through the jails. We are one of them. The University of Kentucky keeps up with those stats for the substance abuse program. I assume they still do. They were a couple of years ago. Just making that point. I'm not for the program, but I'm not going to throw a fit if it does pass. I'm going to, like Norman said, I'm going to accept it and I will help in any way I can. Me and Mindy talked about some options that if the program does move forward, that there's also some grant money that they can start an education program at the jail. Great, I'm all for that. But that doesn't change my mind on where I stand. A couple of questions. Well, really just one, because I got the answer to the other one. Why can't we focus more on, well, 2 things. Why can't we focus more on educating not just the general public, but what I would like to see is a little more education in the school system, beginning in the middle school. The middle school seems to be the most detrimental age to be influenced by peer pressure and the negative side of life, basically. And then the second thing is, I would think it might be more effective if we focus more on vaccinations for every citizen in the county. If there's, I don't know the answers to that, but if there's a way to make vaccines free to general public, Mindy's helped us, just like Norman talked about, with our staff and a large portion of our inmates at the jail, and we appreciate that. I'm like Norman too. I've talked to several inmates, and the answer is always the same. Most of them will tell you that they probably would use the needle exchange program, but every one of them will tell you that they're going to use the needle they have in their hand It doesn't matter if it's clean or not. All they focused on is the fix. They're not gonna drive to Litchfield to get a clean needle. If they're in town, they're probably gonna do it. But if they're out in the county, they're not gonna drive to Litchfield to get a clean needle if they've got a needle and the drug's in their hand. If the needle is the only thing they like to take the drug, then they're probably gonna come to town and get one. That's it.
All right, thank you, Jason. Mindy and Dr. Lee, if you all want to address any issues that anybody's brought up, feel free to at this time. And then I'm going to open up the floor to the general public, give them a couple minutes to voice their opinions to the court, and then we'll move on.
I'll just say, I have invited, it's all about how you perceive things, and we can all perceive things one way or perceive things another way. I can make something look bad, I can make something look good. I have invited Sheriff Chafins to go with me to 3 needle exchange programs. I think that would have been a mind changer for him if he'd have went, because that's when my mind was completely changed. But until you know all about the programs and you see them all, it's hard to make a judgment on it. And we are the healthcare professionals, and I'm asking you guys, please consider this. We don't want to be the last county to initiate a needle exchange. We don't want to be in an HIV outbreak. We kind of already are in a Hep C outbreak. We already are in a Hep A outbreak. With 30 cases, 26 of them being IV drug use. I think Norman does a wonderful job with the DARE program, but it's not working, and we have to do something different. We cannot sit on our hands. So please, 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 let's do something before it's too late.
Thanks, Mindy. Dr. Lee?
I appreciate the input from the law enforcement. And I'm not sure what the gentleman's title was, it district attorney or
Commonwealth attorney.
Commonwealth attorney. Norman made one statement about that we're in an epidemic of drug abuse. We have an epidemic of drug abuse. And there is no one on either of these front rows here who would disagree with that. That is a huge, overwhelming, socioeconomic, ethical problem in our country. But to deny that there is a epidemic of HIV and Hep C is having our heads in the sand. That's a real thing. And whether we do this needle exchange or not, if we don't do the needle exchange, I don't think you're going to see a number of deaths drop in Grayson County from people using drugs, from shooting up, from overdosing. Will we see some deaths from people that use needles they get from the health department? They might. They're drug addicts. They're not normal people. They aren't the same people they used to be. I like what Steve said. These are people that are not their original selves. And I'm sure this young woman that shared with us and very courageously shared your story, you're a different person now than you were 5 years ago, or whatever that, 5.5 years ago. So there will be deaths if we do this. There may be more deaths if we don't do it. And there may be deaths from Hep C. There may be deaths from HIV that could have been prevented by doing it. No doubt if there is some way to get every addict and talk to them and hug them and tell them we care about them and they're important, and that would be ideal. I think this is a program that gives us the best chance of doing that. When they come in, they're not going to be obligated to listen to us, listen to the people that are there on the front line. But some of them will. And some of them won't until they get in prison. And they may listen when they're there. But I don't see a downside to this. And I will answer your question. If I had a child or grandchild who was using IV drugs, I would do exactly what you would do. I would hug them and tell them that they're important. But I'd say, if you're going to do this, use clean needles, for God's sake. Don't give your wife HIV or Hep C or have the chance of her having a child with us. They're not going to stop doing it because I give them a clean needle. But if they know I care enough about them that I don't want them to get these horrible things in addition to their horrible addiction, maybe they would begin to listen. You know, it's a huge problem. I wish we didn't have to talk about it, but it's here. I mean, my first thought when I stepped up here initially was this: we can't ignore this. This is happening. And, you know, I'll probably vote for you again the next time. But
Well, about a month ago it was you would vote for me, now it's probably. I'm not going to pump you over anyway, Dr. Lee.
But this is a huge issue that we have to deal with. And I think ignoring it and saying that this is, you know, that we just have the drug epidemic without looking at the community health aspect of this is not looking at the whole picture. And that's what our, you know, public health is here for that reason. That's what we're here for, is for our community health. Part of that is drug addiction. You know, we know these people are breaking the law. We're not advocating that they do this. We'd like for them to quit. We're going to talk to them about quitting every time. So it's a big issue. I think that it's an opportunity to do the right thing. I hope that you can do that.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Just real quick, just to address what Mindy said. I have taught drug prevention program for 25 years, and you know, generally to say that it doesn't work, it's not working. It's like anything else. There's no program that's going to prevent everybody from using drugs. I mean, there's no needle exchange program that's going to prevent everybody from using drugs. It's the same thing with the Here's Looking at You program I teach. You've got a group of kids that no matter what you teach them, they're going to use drugs. There's a group of kids that no matter what you teach them, they're never going to use drugs. But the majority of the kids, which includes my own kids, are probably straddling that line and can go either way. And if you can just influence one or two of them to go the way that they need to go, then that is a success, no matter what grade they're in. And that's the way I look at it, you know. And I understand that
Norman, I didn't say this, but I applaud you because you have been on the forefront in Grayson County for going to the school and teaching those kids. And you have influenced kids. People listen to you.
Well, thank you.
So that's one of the reasons you get my vote.
I don't know about you all, but every time Dr. Lee speaks to me, I feel like I'm 8 years old and he's saying, Kevin, I told you. Every time he talks to me, I feel like that. Anybody from the audience, any people want to give their opinion? If we do, let's just keep it to a couple minutes. For or against? Mr. Merriweather? We've been here a couple hours too.
I know you
so
have.
it's
I apologize for being late. I've been to board meeting. I won't take 2 minutes, I promise. I'm Wayne Merriweather. I'm the CEO of Twin Lake Freedom Medical Center. Gosh, have you heard any statistics tonight? I think it's heard a bunch. I'm only going to provide you with one other statistic you may not have heard. I read a report this morning that deaths due to opioid overdoses for the first time in this country has exceeded the number of automobile deaths. It's staggering. 49,000 people in 2017 died of overdoses. I'm sure you've heard that you had 28 last year died of overdoses in this county. We have an epidemic problem of addiction in this country, so doubt about that. In this community, we do as well. You've heard that. I know you have. I want to read one thing to you. This on the back of my badge. It's our mission. It's on the back of my badge and every employee at Twin Lakes Freedom Medical Center. It says our mission, Twin Lakes exists to heal the sick, relieve pain and suffering, and improve the quality of life for the people we serve. That's why we started a pain clinic a few years ago to help people with chronic pain and problems with drugs. That's why we started almost a year ago, or this February, a medical stabilization program. Some of you may have heard that we're getting ready to start a program in the very near future for expectant mothers that are addicted to opioids. That's why we treat folks with overdoses when they come into our emergency room. That's why we treat these patients when they're on a medical surge floor. That's why we had 2 folks in our intensive care program just last week. It's an everyday occurrence that we're dealing with. We've got a tremendous problem. Legislation was passed in Washington towards the end of last year to address addiction in this country. And I'm here tonight to tell you it's going to take every tool, every resource, and every community working together to lift this problem. You folks, as magistrates, this fiscal court, have an opportunity tonight to give us another tool to help address it. It's not the answer, but if you combine all these things together, we can make a difference and we can save lives. That's all I'm going to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Anybody else got any comments for or against? Yes, Dr. Murray.
I know most of you all. I'm Dr. Bryce Meredith. I'm a family medicine and sports medicine physician. I'll keep this short since I've addressed this with most of you all. I appreciate everyone speaking tonight and the statistics we've heard. My area of physicians, we see hepatitis C, HIV, and hepatitis A frontline. And during my training at the University of Kentucky, I saw just the detriment of hepatitis C. It's a blood-borne illness, fluid-borne illness, and just to clarify a few things, one of the biggest risk factors for getting hepatitis C is transmission through dirty needles, and we know that through studies from the CDC and through the World Health Organization. This program, as my father spoke of, this isn't something that we want to talk about as a community. This isn't something we don't wish this on our community at all, but I do see this as a public health problem. And I don't expect everybody to be an expert on hepatitis C or HIV or Hep A, but these are the concerns that I do have when I go to bed at night, because I know we are on the brink of potentially having a hepatitis C or HIV outbreak here in Grayson County. Scott County, Indiana is a very scary situation, and I hope that never happens here, and I hope we don't get to that point. But we are very close to being there, and I can tell you that as a healthcare professional. I see this every single day in my clinic. I didn't realize how severe the hepatitis C and HIV and FA problem, how severe it was here in Grayson County until I got back home about 6 months ago. And I quickly saw that what I saw at the University of Kentucky was also happening here. So not only is this a public health issue, but it's also a financial issue as well, because it does cost hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars to treat a hepatitis C patient and an HIV patient. So I do ask you all that from a public health standpoint, I think we need to decide, is this a public health issue? And I won't claim to know the law enforcement issue, because that's not what I do. I don't understand that side law, and there are a lot of arguments that they make sense to me, but from a physician standpoint, we do have a public health crisis here, I believe, and I think we need to decide, you need to decide, is this truly a public health issue, and is it something we're going to do about it? And I hope that you will support this needle exchange, because I do think that it can potentially cut down and reduce the number of hepatitis cases and HIV cases we have here, and hopefully prevent us from becoming Scott County, Indiana. So with that, I appreciate it. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Dr. Fulkerson and I have been family medicine and recently added wound care physician here for 22 years. And I don't have any more statistics than the rest of the medical people have given you. I just want to make sure that you all are aware of the February 1st meeting over at Fire Station number 1 that I've talked to several of you about. It's to have more information, more education on the drug abuse problem, and then to have a roundtable discussion. It's going to be medical, first responders, police, fire, and city and county government, so that we can look at all the different issues and then have a roundtable discussion to try to see, what tools are out there and use as many of them as possible to try to prevent disease, prevent death, or at least push it out as far as we can, because all of us that went to medical school, that's what we fight every day. We fight to keep people alive, and we fight to keep them healthy. So I just ask that we use as many tools as we have in Grayson County to do exactly that, and to help each other. Because I think once we have kind of a roundtable discussion, it helps us know, because medical doesn't know what law enforcement is looking at. Law enforcement doesn't know everything that medical has to deal with, and the first responders have even more issues that they're bringing to the table. So if everybody puts their issues on the table, maybe we can come to some good resolutions, resolves, and to help the citizens of Grayson County.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Anyone else? Got a comment? Yes, Dr. Miller.
Dr. Isaac Miller, sports medicine doctor here at Twin Lakes Medical Center, also a member of the Board of Health that passed this proposal. I view this as a public health issue alone. I think there's debate whether this affects the law enforcement side, the legal side. I think it's clear that there's difference of opinion. But I ask you go to your doctor, you ask him a question about your health. He tells you, you need to do this to keep from getting this disease. Do you do what they say? If you trust that man or woman or provider of some sort, you're often going to do what they say. as a medical community, we've come forward today expressing our concern about the crisis that's at hand. And every one of us have said this is a solution to that. Kevin mentioned that Dr. Lee tells you to do something, you're going to do it, right? He was my doctor. He's the reason I became a doctor. I wanted to be like Dr. Lee. That's why I became a physician. And so there's a reason that we've brought this forward to you all today. And time is of the essence. Because those 10 cases turn into 20 cases, turn into 80 cases, turn into 300 cases in a matter of months to years. And by the time we get around to doing something, it may be too late. And that's the part, there's an urgency here that I want to make sure that is expressed. There's an urgency to action that has to be done. And I go back to what Steve Meredith said. Sometimes it's hard to make a decision that's unpopular, but if you feel in your heart that it's the right decision, I ask that you make that decision tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone? We'll give everybody an opportunity to speak.
For those of you up here that don't know me, my name is Jessica Embry, and I'm the director of the Medical Stabilization Program that was just started this past year at Twin Lakes. I just had to leave to go open the doors for our very first NA meeting that we're hosting at the hospital for the public so that our patients that are in currently can attend the meeting while they're there trying to go through their withdrawals. I'm a little emotional because this is like, it's the largest meeting that they've ever had in our county. The people there tonight, I just let 40 people in the doors of the hospital. Several of those faces were individuals that have been through the program at Twin Lakes. And it's just amazing to me to see the difference in such a short time that this program has made. These people giving me hugs as they just walked in telling me that, you know, they've had 72 days clean. All of these people, when they came to me, were not 100% ready. You know, so-and-so was trying to force them to go to treatment, or they're doing this for their mom or their spouse. But through their time there with us, they talk and we work things out and we get it to a point where this is what they want. And this is my hope for the needle exchange, that these individuals that don't have someone to encourage them to do better things and make better choices will be in front of individuals every time they come that are on their side, that want to do what's best for them, to encourage them to do the right thing. And you may think that all of these people have those individuals in their life that are encouraging them to do that, but they burn so many bridges along the way. It takes lots of people, more than 10 times even, trying to get clean. And they burn tons of bridges and then they have no one. So with the slim chance of them coming into the health department, that they can talk to someone that changes their mind, that makes them make the right choice to go into treatment and get help, it will better our society, it will help our economy, it will lower the crime rate, it will lower the amount of overdoses that happen. I just want you all to really think about what that can do as far as just compassion, the compassion that our county can show these individuals, that we care. We care what happens to them. We want them to get help. We have to show these people love instead of hate and stereotype. So that's all I have. But I'm really excited about the NA meeting. I just left to go open up. It really just is eye-opening. I wish that you all could have been there to see the amount of people and for them to tell me this is the biggest meeting ever in our county. There are some amazing things going on in the world of recovery here. And that's just one step. We have to work together. It's not going to be one program. It's not going to be just law enforcement or just the medical stabilization program. It has to be a community of different programs that solve the problem that we're having.
Thank you, Jessica. The lady back in the back, did you want to say something?
Yes. Hi guys, my name is Angela Schertzer. I'm a registered nurse in the community, And I have a little bit of a different take on this. What we're talking about with the needles are illegal. We're not encouraging, but I believe we would be enabling. I kind of find it odd that we're having this discussion. I know that there is an epidemic. I know that there is a lot of misuse and abuse, but I think that there's a lot of other ways to handle this. I agree with what Norman said. I agree with what lots of people said about trying to get people in, trying to get them into rehab, because when they're plunging that needle, and the needle that plunges, half the time they're out, passed out, whatever the effects of the drug is, they're passed out before they can even plunge the needle. So they're still finding drugs in the needle. I don't know that the plunger is kind of the answer, I guess. I'm a little confused. You can test anyway at the health department for anything you want to. It doesn't have to be this specific. It's not just going for HIV. It's not just going for hepatitis C. You can go there anytime. It doesn't have to be just for the needle exchange. You know, it's kind of odd because diabetic patients can't get needles. They can't get sharps containers. They can't do these other things. And we're just going to give people who are using drugs, who are not themselves, that is right, we're just going to give them needles. It doesn't matter if it's a clean needle, like Norman said, and Mr. Williams said, it's not just they're wanting clean needles. They're going to use whatever needle, they don't care, because they're not themselves. I think the focus we need to do is on getting them help, getting the other programs, maybe instituting other things. I heard it said at another meeting something about you can't get anything from getting stuck by a needle. That is false. Just like he said, somebody got stuck with the needle, a deputy got stuck or something, you can get diseases from getting stuck with needles. It's a very scary thing. I've not been stuck as a nurse, but it is a very scary thing. I think it's a bad idea. I think they're going to share it with who they're going to share it with. And I think giving them another opportunity to get in a vehicle and go get a clean needle is just not the answer. I'm like Norman. I think everybody here tonight, the people that I know, we're going to leave here still friends. It doesn't matter, we can differ on opinions, but I think it needs to be discussed. And they're going to do what they're going to do. We need to help them as much as we can, but I'm just not sure this is the correct way, and that's my opinion.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on? All right, very well. Gentlemen, now we go back to discussion. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
I've got one more question. I may have missed this earlier. What's the nearest county that implements this? What's the nearest county that's using it now?
Warren, Nelson.
How long? A long time.
Nelson's been going on since,
Nelson since July of 2017.
What year? Close to
Local
a year.
Metro 2015. Warren County just this year.
What was the longest running county, you think?
It was last year.
Do you have any statistics from that county? Which county did you say? I'm sorry, I missed it again. Which one did you say had been going since 2015?
Warren, Nelson, Jefferson.
I don't mean to put you on the
No,
spot.
no, I've got a whole cover of them.
Thank you. Appreciate it, ma'am.
Someone from Grayson County, someone from Grayson County can go to Warren County and get needles, right?
Yes, sir.
And go to Jefferson County and get needles. Nelson County, or, Bullitt County, is that what you said? Was it Bullitt County or Nelson County? Nelson.
Nelson is the longest running one, right? I mean,
Louisville Metro.
Louisville Metro is the longest running, that's all. I didn't think I needed to come back. Thank you.
Well, you can look at, you can.
No, I appreciate that, I really do.
Any questions by any of the magistrates? I think everybody here has known this was coming up for quite some time. I think it's back in probably October, sometime, we've been talking to some of these folks. I've tried my best not to give you all my opinion as far as how, what I think about this, because we've made a joke before that I said, you all thought it was all about roads and road ties, and it's completely different than that. So there's a lot of tough decisions to make. We've actually got, we could either vote on this tonight. Of course, Robbie's not here with us. I wish Robbie was here with us. Robbie's probably a little under the weather, I'd say. He's got a lot of things going on. However, there is another option. That's my job, is to give you all the options and all the facts. Senator Meredith, when does the Senate meet again?
We go back in February 5th. I'm sure you're talking about Senate Bill 69, which you and I texted back and forth a little bit. And just to clarify that bill, because I hadn't seen it today, I gave you that text when it was filed. All that bill does is mandate that if you have a needle exchange program, it'll be 1-to-1. So this will not be a statewide initiative other than the mandate, if you have needle exchange, it has to be 1-to-1.
Okay. So that would eliminate any kind of coming in and getting 15 needles. What you all actually projected to do is whenever they first come in, give them 15 needles.
No, you can still come in on the initiation. That just means a 1-for-1 like we're going to do.
Right, but the program that you all are trying to get implemented is you can come in and get 15 needles without bringing a needle in right now.
But that's on initiation, but then
Right.
it's a 1-for-1, but that's what the bill
Okay.
is.
And that bill, Senator, is going to do away with that as far as initiation goes? It'll be a 1-for-1, is that right?
The language was very short, very simple. It just says if you have a needle exchange program, it'll be a 1-to-1 exchange.
Okay.
Which means Louisville Metro that doesn't require you to do a 1-for-1 would have to go back to doing a 1-for-1.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
How can it be 1-for-1 if you give 15 out first? And I'm just asking a stupid question. You're not trading 15 to get 15. I can walk in and get 15
You
without
just
giving
have
you.
to start somewhere because a lot of times they don't have the needles to bring in. So that would be up to 15, not necessarily 15.
Right,
Depending
up
on
to
their drug
15.
use, it would be up to 15 for the first time and then a strict 1-for-1 change.
And you all have, I think I asked you this the other day, but you all have your policies in place, ready to go.
All right, gentlemen, you all
Anybody
have.
can come in and get 15.
Up to 15 depending on their drug use.
And that's every day. If they want to come in and trade 15, they can come in every day that you're open, right?
Twice a week.
Okay, I thought you all were doing it every day.
That's an initial.
We are operational every day.
Okay,
So during operational hours they can come in, but we come up with twice a week.
that you're going to give needles out, or I can only come in
No,
twice a
if you
week?
came in today, you can come back in a time a week.
I can
But we're
only
gonna be
come
open
twice a
every
week.
time. But we're gonna be open every single day.
Again, I'm still not clear, but a user can only, or somebody want, I ain't saying user, somebody wanting needles can only get needles twice a week.
Yes.
Okay.
One person can only come twice a week, even though we're gonna be open
Right,
during operational
right.
hours.
And I did understand. I'm sorry to ask again. I just want to make sure I understand. The first time, they don't have to have no needles to get their first 16 or whatever. First time, they do not have to have anything.
Because I don't want them going and digging through dumpsters looking for them, because that also takes a risk of them getting Hep C and HIV.
I understand your point.
Okay, gentlemen, is there any other comments?
I'm getting sick.
Discussions?
Sick.
Anything? All right. Have y'all heard enough information?
I've heard all of it. I just gotta be honest with you. I can't say that I'm 100% or just like Mindy's told me many, many times. It took her a long time to ever get on board, to change her mind, right? I mean, she stated that to me several times. I'm not gonna say I'm against it at all. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I just can't sink all of it in yet.
It took
You
me
said it
going
took you a long
and
time.
And studying about it and
Yeah.
not just Googling statistics.
Right.
But actually going to the CDC and see, you know, that's the things you have to look at. I mean,
Right.
like I said, you can perceive anything.
Yeah, I
You
get
can
that.
find any kind of data out there you want, you know, but that's when I started. And then Mr. Greg Lee came down and he's been doing this for a long time. He's seen a lot of things.
I mean, I get that, but like I said, it's still spinning, you know, the goods and the bads. I get what you're
Well,
saying.
and I met with Senator Meredith today, and I asked him, I said, Senator Meredith, do you think in 3 or 4 years this is possibly going to be mandated? And he said possibly, and that's where I feel like it's going as a health department director.
Yeah.
I think that it's getting such out of hand, and we've got a problem, and city councils and fiscal courts cannot pass these programs. So then I think, my personal opinion, I think a Senate bill will be passed, and I think everybody will do it, and then the funding's gone, and then local tax dollars, that's where it's going to come from.
I was gonna make a suggestion whenever I talked to Senator Meredith that we tabled the issue till we found out about Senate Bill 69. Unfortunately, that's just, instead of throwing it in your lap, Senator, that's not actually what the bill was designed for the legal exchange, other than the one exchange. So, with that being said, if you all have any questions or anything, I beg you to ask them now, because I want to entertain a motion to do this. Pass the needle exchange harm reduction program for the Board of Health, Grayson County Board of Health. Entertain a motion.
I want to make a motion here, but I want it with a provision of a sunset provision in it to where it is a one-for-one exchange, and after the initial visit, that we do this for 13 months, and then where we can check and see if it's actually working, like we want it to or not. We have the option to shut it down.
Your motion being that you're going to make the motion
I'm making a motion,
with the provision that it has a sunset clause, did you say?
sunset provision clause,
Okay.
that we have the option after, the reason I say 13 months is because it gives them a year to check statistics to see if it's working or not. The other month is for, honestly, time for a meeting, so.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
It's my opinion, people. You know, we've had, we're all, all those people here were adults. We've all had questions about this. I can see the health department's part about it. I can see the law enforcement part about it. All right, my people that, I know some of you people that's on the medical board are in my district. I understand that. But the majority of my people in my district have talked to me and texted me, and they're against this. So as my opinion tonight, I can't make a vote tonight because I'm still on the fence. Till I get more information and more study about it, I just gonna feel like I can vote tonight.
And if you put that in the right order, I'd second what he's getting ready to say.
I have got a motion on the floor to approve. We have to go ahead and go along with that motion. So if we do not have a second, it dies for the lack of a second and fails. So I've got a motion on the floor by Darren Whiteley to approve. I need a second. If we do not have a second, it will die for the lack of a second. Do I have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Okay. Motion dies for lack of a second to the Board of Health. To let y'all know, we can probably readdress this at a later date. I give it 6 months, maybe see what the Senate, something might come up. Is all the bills been filed, Senator?
No, filing deadline's not in the middle of February, so you're right.
something could come up with, with the Senate or the House, either one, so, that could be a possibility too. I want to thank you all, for all of the hard work. I know Mindy's worked real hard on this, and all the other staff, and, I thank each and every one of you, and thank a lot of you. Unfortunately, I know these magistrates has had a lot of people are against us in the county. And I think the main thing, and it is disheartening, and especially like what Dr. Ferguson said, Mindy had that thing. Of course, I mean, it was sort of bad timing too, a little bit, but I mean, nobody showed up. I mean, there were 5 or 6 people, and as many people gets behind this here at their house, and now they've got all kinds of good comments. They don't care to comment on the glass screen, but it's a little tougher when you get in front of somebody and you're looking at them in the face. And Mindy had that. Everybody was out there. The entire staff was out there, and there was just a few people that showed up. And from looking at the Facebook post, it was going to be absolutely overwhelming that there was going to be hundreds of people there. Nobody showed up. So I applaud you all for that, and thank you. And I think if you all would like, we can readdress this later on at another court meeting later on in the future. And nobody else has got any comments. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Lee, all the presenters. Thank you all for presenting and taking your time out. I know it's been a long meeting, but this is something that we don't need to take lightly. So that's why I wanted to give all the magistrates all the tools and all the facts, and the motion has died for the lack of a second. So thank you all.
Can I
Thank
say,
everybody.
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want you guys to understand on the health side that, I think I can speak for Norman too, but nobody's saying that it definitely wouldn't help reduce disease control. We understand that side of it. I don't want you to think that we got our heads in the sand, because we don't. But we also need you guys to understand the law enforcement side of it too. There is a negative to that, and it's not a fix for substance abuse. And I probably regret this, but I'm usually brutally honest. It's disheartening for any motion to die because of a lack of a second. I think you guys are put in office to make decisions for the citizens, and you should be doing that. Just my opinion. Whichever way it goes. I think if it comes back around, you guys need to be prepared to make a decision on it.
I'm not prepared. It's like I told Mindy, I'm not prepared to, I'm sorry?
What can we do to make you more prepared?
It's going to take more time to do the research. And I got to be honest, y'all can walk out here and hate me, but I'm not schooled enough, just like I said, she's told me many times, it took her a long time to ever be convinced. And she's in that side of it. To be convinced, to be on that side to do it. And that's somebody. And I respect her for that. But she told up front that it took her a while before she was ever able to say she wanted to go that way. I mean, and I'm with her. Maybe it'll take me longer than it did her. That don't make me a bad person.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Now, I want to add, I want to thank each and every one of you all for coming out tonight. And I respect the law enforcement side of it, I do. And I told Norman here a while back, I was totally against this. I was. But I'm looking at it more of a disease prevention other than a drug use prevention, because that's what I think it's set up for. That's why I thought we'd try to give it a try. But I want to thank all of you. And I respect everybody's opinion, whatever said. That being said, I'm done talking.
And I would just say one thing real quick too, and this, you can take this for what it's worth, because I'm brutally honest as well. If when someone says that it's going to reduce crime, if you're going to address the law enforcement side of it, I would just ask that you get law enforcement involved and locally. If you would have came in here and addressed just the health side of it and not put that it decreases crime, not that it's going to reduce needle sticks by law enforcement, that it's going to do this for law enforcement. I think if you just address that, I think it would be, I don't know, the health side of it, just focus on that. I think that would be more effective.
With all due respect, it would have saved lives, though. It would have saved lives. And I know you said earlier, if I can just reach one or two of them. If I can just reach one or two in the syringe exchange. If I can just reach one or two. You were happy with that, with your program.
But that's right, Ashley. But the difference in my program is, if I don't reach those other ones, they make the choice to go use drugs. I'm not giving them a needle to go shoot the drugs up.
No, but I'm going to go pick up one and get HIV or Hep C. I'm going to use a dirty one.
All right, moving on. We're not going to go into debate. We can talk after the meeting, so.
It just would have saved lives.
I want to say that I know that they have made comment about trying to get these folks in rehab, and I encourage everyone, Ernie, Jason, Norman, all the magistrates, Jeremy, Rick, everyone, that if someone shows up at your door, and I think anybody would do this, and I know I would, that's why I asked Ashley a little while ago if she had actually, that she decided she wanted to change. Nobody made her want to change. I've been around drug addicts my entire career. I worked with them. And they all told me they wasn't going to do anything until they decided to do it themselves. We just need you need a hand up, not a hand out. It's my philosophy. And sometimes people don't know what's best for them sometimes, but I encourage everyone that if someone shows up at your door and say, look, I'm an addict, at the health department, if we're throwing the peace offering out for a needle exchange program, and we want to try to do this, and I understand completely. I mean, I talk to Wayne about once a week about different things. I understand completely what all the doctors are wanting to do. Completely understand it. Don't disagree with it. But if we're going to throw this peace offering out and say, the rehab, that's the most important thing. Well, even if we don't have a needle exchange, can they show up and say, I need help? Are we going to help them?
Yes.
Okay, that's my thing. So that's the education.
Not that we see a lot of it.
Right.
Yeah, if somebody comes into us and asks for help, we absolutely.
And you're not going to see a lot of it, because there was only a few times in my career that I had a couple people say, man, I want some help. One of them done great. The rest of them didn't. They fell back. But that is a choice that they have to make. And I just think that we need to open our doors to these folks and educate people and say, hey, if you need help, there's help out there. And where are we going to send them? What are we going to do then? That was another question. Twin Lakes has got a facility over there that, they start up. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, but it's sort of hard to get them in that if they don't have insurance, correct?
Kevin, I'm not meaning to interrupt, but today, as of today, I told my secretary she's in the process of compiling every rehab center within a 100-mile radius of Grayson County today. What services offered, what insurance companies.
Okay. And it'd be
I would love to have it at the sheriff's office.
And it would be interesting to share it with all of us. And like I said, just because it's motion, just because it didn't pass, doesn't mean that this is over. There's a lot of different, you can ask Senator Merritt, there's a lot of different things that failed that ends up coming back a year or two later and passing. So my suggestion is to you all healthcare professionals that compile that evidence as far as this rehab facility. I think more people are trying to buy into it as far as education goes. And let's figure out where we can send these folks, because so many times I hear them say, well, they won't take me because they ain't got insurance. That's a problem. We got a problem. It's not just here in Grayson County, it's everywhere. So, yes, sir.
KIPRIC, which is the Kentucky Injury Prevention Research Center, part of UK, has compiled that list, and it's online. It's an active system. It's Find Help KY, Find Help Now, KY.org.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, any other new business? Norman, do you have any other new business?
No, sir.
Jason? No. Darren?
No, sir.
Thank you. Brian? Jeremy, do you have anything? Okay, I have something for Charlotte. She's open on Saturdays now, so. Second Saturday? Yeah, from 8 to 11, so that is, a lot of people happy about that, so. Any old business? Norman? Jason? Aaron, anybody? Something I want to bring up is I had spoke with Doug Robinson about this, and we've been looking into it a little bit. And spoke with Jason and spoke with Norman. I'd like to throw out there and see what kind of applications we get on a Grayson County grant administrator. And take some applications on this to basically fill out grants for the county. And because there's a lot of grants out there, and I'll be honest with you folks, I don't have a lot of time to do it. I mean, some of them I do, some of them I don't. So I'd like to throw this out there that we take applications for this Grayson County Grant Administrator. I've also spoke with Doug at the school board, and they're willing to be responsible for part of the salary, as long as, and Jason as well, and coming out of the general fund. And I think it'd benefit Norman probably more than it would anybody, because there's so many Homeland Security grants. And I've got a list here, if y'all want to see them, of 2008 grants from Homeland Security grants. A lot is 911, first responders, all kinds of first responders on there. I mean, the total's well over $3-4 million. And one thing that I've noticed on it is Grayson County's not on there. So Hardin, LaRue, Lawrence, Scott, Whitley, Fayette, Hopkins, Jefferson, Taylor, Boyd, Fleming, Pike, Warren, McGoffin, Martin, Marion, a lot of different counties on there. So I'd like to get a motion in a second from the court to go ahead and advertise for the possibility of a grant administrator.
Can you clarify what, I mean, is there a description, do you have a description in mind?
I do have a job description, and
we don't need to just have a
requirement.
Right. Job description is going to be experienced, and I'll give the news media this also, a copy of this. Experienced individual able to coordinate and work with various government offices under the direction of the judge executive for the purpose of managing, applying, obtaining grants to expand services in Grayson County. Must be able to delegate administrative duties regarding preparation of grants, meet with agency heads, and provide guidance regarding financial and support services to recipients of grants and assist in finalizing of grant applications. Minimum requirements. The educational requirements for this position are a bachelor's degree in either accounting, business administration, or finance, and a postgraduate degree equivalent to a master's degree or higher. And salary would be based upon experience with a minimum of 2 years grant management or administration. So we want a good one. Okay, so if there's any discussion on this? Anything?
You're gonna advertise in surrounding counties, or just how?
We're gonna put it in the paper and advertise, yes.
I think it's a good idea. We need to get all the money we can get.
And my suggestion is I don't want to do just the interview. I'd like to have, and I talked to Doug today, since Doug is going to have some, I guess, skin in the game, you would say. I'd like for Doug to be sitting on hiring committee, Norman, Jason, and myself, and I'd like to have at least one magistrate who would like to volunteer to sit on that. You? All right. Darren? Any questions? And like I said, we might decide not to hire anybody. Depends on what kind of applications we get, but at least we can see what we test the waters and see what we can get. Questions? All right, need a motion? Motion by Tommy, second by Darren, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Darren, thank you. And that is actually all I have unless anybody else has anything. You got anything else on you? All right, need a motion to adjourn? Motion by Brian, second by Neil, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.